How do you attend an academy that doesn't have a physical address? Would you go to a school that takes 20 years to graduate from? Will you ever need to use multidimensional calculus? Learn more about the great academies of sci-fi and fantasy in this edition of Anomaly.
Anomaly. Something that deviates from what is standard, normal, or expected. An oddity, peculiarity, irregularity, inconsistency, incongruity, a rarity.
Hello and welcome to the Anomaly Podcast. I'm Jen. I graduated from Southwest Texas State University in 1998, where I kicked butt in studio art, martial arts, and Tetris. And I am an anomaly.
My name is Angela, and Starfleet would probably never take me, but Hogwarts would, and I am an anomaly. Hi! Welcome to the Anomaly Podcast.
Yeah, welcome. I don't know how schools work in other parts of the world.
Yeah?
But here in the United States, most schools are back in session after a long summer vacation.
It's a back-to-school episode.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today officially?
Academies in sci-fi and fantasy.
Yes, awesome.
Do you want to start with the ones that maybe aren't so obvious?
Sure, something a little more obscure. Yes, that's fine. Go ahead.
We had Gail Carriger on our show last year, right?
Yes, we did.
We talked about Remember Me, that episode of TNG where Crusher, she's stuck in some sort of weird loop thing. But she is a New York Times bestselling author who writes steampunk novels. And she has a series of YA novels called The Finishing School. This finishing school is really awesome. It's called Mademoiselle Gerardine's Finishing School for Young Ladies of Quality, which is not what you might expect. It's a spy school that teaches the fine arts of dance, dress, etiquette, but they also learn to deal out death, diversion, and espionage in the politest possible ways.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it.
I like this one too, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly where it is because it exists on 3 dirigibles, so it's like floating around the south of England.
That's cool.
They learn cool things like how to dance the quadrille, knife fighting, proper manners and dress for theater, advanced eyelash fluttering, buying poison and planning dinner on a limited budget, court etiquette, fainting in a crowd to attract attention, and they have vampire lore and defense as a class. And so, it's like a supernatural series, so there is a reason why they're learning to defend themselves this way. They learn to finish others.
Did you ever get to see Pride and Prejudice and Zombies?
No, I haven't.
Oh, Jen, you have to see it. I know you don't like Jane Austen for whatever reason, but it's a send-up. It's a total send-up, and it takes itself super seriously, which makes it even better. Part of the backstory is that there's these schools that they send them to because basically zombies have taken over the world.
Right.
But it's England in the early 1800s. So it's still like this propriety and all of the kind of Jane Austen fare, but every single one of them is trained to hunt and kill zombies.
Oh, I think I learned a little bit about this. Like, depending on where they were trained, they have like a hierarchy.
Yeah, there's a hierarchy, but like Elizabeth and her sisters were trained in the one that they would normally the working class people were sent because their dad wanted them to learn a certain type of zombie killing. And it's so amazing. You need to watch it because
I will.
I went into it sort of skeptical because I was just curious about the costumes because we were talking about maybe doing that one year. And I was like, okay, but I really you will enjoy it. It is very enjoyable. I mean, the one thing you won't get because you don't do Jane Austen is that they verbatim will do a scene from Jane Austen, right? But they're fighting. Anyway, sorry, that's just something that reminded me of the schools that they go to learn zombie killing. It's very important. Tangent, but
I do need to see
related.
it. I think it's in my wish list.
Definitely one for a night when you just want to kind of turn off your brain and watch something fun.
And for the record, I don't hate Jane Austen. I was forced to read it in high school when I was disinterested, I guess. And I've watched some of the movies. And upon your advice, I have also watched the PBS version of Pride and Prejudice.
The BBC?
Yeah, the BBC version.
Yes, that's a good one.
Because I made the mistake of mentioning that I had watched the Keira Knightley version. And you were like, watch
She's so terrible.
The other version, the one from the BBC. And it's
so good.
Yeah,
it's so good.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I love it. Anyway, sorry. So that is off topic, sort of, but we can go back. Okay, what's another obscure one?
Mademoiselle Geraldine's finishing school for young ladies of quality. I don't think there's a lot of podcasts that even talk about it. But Angela and I love The Wheel of Time.
Oh,
and
yes.
The White Tower is an academy as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's where women go to become Aes Sedai, which are female magic wielders in this universe.
Kind of like Jedi, sort of, witches.
If you want to hear any of those episodes, we did do 2 episodes on The Wheel of Time, so check those out. Let's see. It's the first level of the tower. I think it's the initiate. Initiates, like, they just come in. They have potential. Maybe some of them don't have the spark yet. They're tested, and if they cut the mustard, then they become novice. That takes 10 years.
Yes.
And then they become accepted if they aren't, like, shamed out of the tower, or because the discipline is really harsh there. It's deliberately harsh in order to prepare them for the difficult life of an Aes Sedai, because it sucks out in the world, and some people hate Aes Sedai, and you just got to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
When a girl becomes a novice, she's required to burn all of her clothes that she arrived in order to symbolize a break with her past ties. Kind of like the Jedi, they make you cut all ties. They have to build dependence on the tower. Traditionally, the White Tower only accepts girls for training who are between 16 and 18 years old. Mm-hmm. But like at one point in the Wheel of Time series, I don't know if I should say this because it might spoil it for people who haven't read it.
Don't spoil it.
So I won't even say that.
Sometimes they make exceptions. Just say that.
They make exceptions sometimes. If a girl born with the spark starts to channel before 16 years old, she's brought to the tower and enrolled early for her safety, because you can burn yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
And then if that happens, you kind of go crazy. Sometimes you kill people and yourself. So it can be dangerous.
Definitely.
They have to take their meals in silence.
Oh, that's right.
Punishment is handed down by a sister appointed to the post of Mistress of Novices, and she's the disciplinarian and the mentor. She punishes those who've broken the rules, and she provides a shoulder to cry on. There are some really good ones in the books.
Yeah.
And then some who are not so good.
Well, that's kind of the whole thing, isn't it?
That's the whole thing, because that's
why you get some
life.
drama. That's how you get drama, for sure.
It's that Mistress of Novices who decides if a novice is ready to become an accepted, or if she's ready to be tested or put out of the tower.
Ah, yes.
And lessons are in channeling, history, the old tongue, geography, and politics, and philosophy, which are really important in this book series.
It's so in-depth. This is one of those series where
it
it's
is
like
so detail-oriented.
Yeah, the whole series is just so... We could definitely go on just about the Aes Sedai Tower, probably.
Yeah.
As long as we can.
Well, one of the most important things is testing for the shawl. Testing for the shawl is actually pretty painful too, where they have to go through these silver arches, which present a woman with her greatest fears, one for each arch. It's really bad, and sometimes they can die inside the silver arch thing, which is a whole other topic or story, but... If they come out, they're full Aes Sedai, and they get like a serpent ring to wear, and they are
kind of like nuns.
They get to choose a house, which is they're all sorted into different houses. And again, if you want to hear about that stuff, go listen to our Wheel of Time episodes.
Hogwarts is obviously a huge one. You get your letter when you're 11 years old. This is in England, and the thing is that even since the books have been finished. There's been more expanded kind of universe that J.K. Rowling has put out there about all of the different, not just the houses, but the different academies in the different parts of the world. So you don't just have Hogwarts, you have Beauxbatons and Durmstrang in Eastern European area. And then the one in, I don't know how to pronounce it because there is one in America. And I think they go into that one in... the movie you saw, right? Haven't you seen Magical Creatures and Where to Find Them or whatever? And so they talk about that a little bit. There's one in Japan and Africa that she's talked about, and France? In South America, I think Brazil. Yeah, France is the Beauxbatons.
Okay.
That comes up in the Goblet of Fire. The whole world has magic and magical academies. I don't know about the other schools, but Hogwarts is based on the 4 different houses that we've all talked about. It's interesting because it's so... it's philosophically funny, the idea of like pigeonholing somebody into, okay, well, this is your personality, so this is going to be what you're going to learn and how you're going to interact. But it's also kind of neat from a fantasy perspective. That also reminds me of the Divergent series. Did you ever watch or read any of that?
No, but I know you liked it a lot. We were going to
I do. I've read the first 2 books. I don't know why I haven't finished, because I never finished books. So that's why I've only read the first 2. You're already sorted, quote unquote, into whatever, society. And then when you become a teenager, you get to pick if you want to stay where you were born or if you want to go to a different group. That's actually a really fun series. All the teenagery stuff I could do without.
All the angst. Yeah.
It's the angst and the crushes and the boys and that part, which is fine, but it's like
Harry
it feels
Potter
like
has
it's
that.
stuck in there. Harry Potter has that, but when you put a bunch of teenagers together in one place, I feel like it's a little more organic, the way she approaches it, because that's totally normal. There is like real life or death situations happening in Divergent, like super. And when these like feelings and thoughts come up, it's like, you really should be fighting for your life here and not caring about what the guy's arms look like. Like, it just does not make sense. But anyway, so that's
hormones
like,
are pretty
neither here nor
powerful.
there. I know. You're right. Yeah, that has more to do with getting sorted. It's after they're in school. But yeah, Hogwarts is fun because we all get to have something that we identify with. But what was interesting is something you talked about with the Aes Sedai is that in all of these academies, there's a good mentor and bad guys, like the teachers. You always have somebody that's really good and really bad. For the Aes Sedai, for Wheel of Time, there's the dark friends, and like anyone can be a dark friend. Some of the teachers are definitely in that group, and you don't always know. Some of the women are not dark friends, they're just mean. Like my son's favorite teacher at Hogwarts, Professor Umbridge. Oh my gosh, she's a terrible,
You're being
terrible
sarcastic.
person. I'm being sarcastic. He's yelling at me. Umbridge is horrible. I mean, she's the worst. I read somewhere where Stephen King even was quoted as saying that she was the most vicious villain he had ever seen put to paper. That's a lot coming from Stephen King. And I think it's because she's possible. Umbridge is the kind of evil you run into at the DMV.
Or the government, period.
You know, right. She's a bureaucrat, and it's very much like she's just doing her job by
being a
having
dictator.
complete disregard for human life, you know, but it's like, to her, I don't even think she really even aligns herself with the evil. She's just a terrible human. I don't know. Somehow that's scary. It's kind of like the White Cloaks in Wheel of Time. It's that this driven by this kind of righteousness where it's so misguided. Since you have seen Harry Potter, who's your favorite teacher? Do you remember?
Professor McGonagall. But I also like
love
the professor that teaches botany.
Professor Sprout?
Yes.
I like Professor Lupin. And of course, Snape. We can go back and forth about Snape.
I do like Snape.
I've seen some debates about that, but any more fantasy?
Star Wars kind of walks the line between...
Star Wars walks the line, so we can do Star Wars next.
Okay, well, I'll start with the magic part of Star Wars and go with the Jedi Academy. I learned some pretty interesting things about the Jedi Academy that I didn't know before. I thought I knew everything about the Jedi Academy.
I thought you would have too.
At the time of the Old Sith War, which I'm not sure when that took place, probably Old Republic era, ancient times.
Yep.
The Jedi Academies, there was more than one, and they were located all over the galactic rim on many different planets. What I thought was interesting is that a lot of them were located near Force wellsprings or places of significance to the Order, you know, like where the Crystal Caves were, or nexuses, or even places where there was a lot of dark side energies. So that they can monitor them, which I thought was weird to have an academy near a dark side place, you know, where you're training small children that might fall to the dark side. Wouldn't you want to keep them away from those places?
Well, probably because it had an energy.
Yeah.
Right?
In addition to like traditional academies established by the Order, the Exploration Corps maintains several spacefaring mobile academies, which I didn't know about, that roamed the galaxy and explored new worlds. I guess to find new students or force
find new life and new civilizations.
Life and new civilizations. That's a whole different other school. Yeah,
I know. I'm sorry. It was just too easy. Like it just, sorry. Please continue.
I think they were looking for maybe places that had power and also force-sensitive people. Another interesting thing was that not all the academies taught the same thing. Like, it depended on the planet. So they had philosophies that were a part of that planet integrated into their curriculum. Most of those were closed, I think, before the Jedi Purge. Maybe the next film, which is going to be out, in December?
We'll learn more about that.
Yeah, like, I'm wondering if maybe that was not a temple, but maybe an academy.
That makes sense.
But anyway.
What about actually in Coruscant?
Yeah, the Coruscant Temple was also a place where they taught younglings and Padawans. That was like home base.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And they had the most students. All these other planets that had academies were small. Some of them were small, some of them were larger. It just depended. I guess it was easier. Maybe if you think about it like Buddhist monasteries,
yeah,
maybe it's
fair.
Easier to think of it that way. Like different Asian countries might have different temples, and then, across the world.
Otherwise, like in the Aes Sedai world, it's all one place.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of like satellite. It is just you go to the tower and that's where you go. That's where you learn everything.
Yeah.
So.
Aes Sedai are about power. It makes sense to have them all come to one place so they can control.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And also due to the nature of the power, I think that, the Force and the One Power are two totally different things. Because the Force, everyone's connected to the Force, but then you can have like an aptitude for it. Mm-hmm. Whereas when it comes to the One Power, you either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
And then maybe you have it to different degrees. And it's a lot more volatile if you do have it. Mm-hmm. So kind of a different type of thing. I love it though. I mean, this is one of those things that I love talking about with you, Jen. Just like kind of getting into these worlds, and understanding, how the powers work in these worlds and how rich all of these worlds are. It's just so fun.
Even when you think you know everything, you find something else.
And it starts in these academies. Anyway, so I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, and I learned something else about the instructors. They were masters, and they were primarily guardians and consulars, which if you played Knights of the Old Republic or the Old Republic MMO or any game like that, or if you've read comics or whatever, you kind of know the difference between, the houses or what are these things? That Aes Sedai have houses, and so do the Hogwarts Academy. Well, so does Jedi. Like, they have guardians, consulars, sentinels. What else? They have a whole bunch of different ones. They all have, like, specific talents. So guardians and consulars are, like, protectors and diplomats. Like, Obi-Wan was a consular. So they're the ones that teach. They were chosen to do that because they're better at identifying initiates' weak points and preventing them from falling to the dark side.
Oh, that's important.
Yeah. As we know, they're taken from their families at a young age and encouraged to cut out all ties with them. And younglings studied in clans. That's what those little group of kids are called.
Oh,
in the class, they're not classes, they're clans. There's like 20 of them. And they grow up together. When they're a certain age, they go to a planet called Ilum, which you see those Ilum crystals, that you can upgrade your lightsaber with. They come from that planet, I guess. But they're kyber crystals, and they're needed to build their lightsabers. So once they do that, then they're allowed to go through the initiate trials to allow them to become Padawan, to a Jedi Knight or Master. After a while, their master decides whether or not they're ready for the Jedi trials. When I was researching this, it just kind of briefly talked about what the steps are that they have to go through in the trials, which are maybe different depending on the Padawan. Yeah. Like little tests that maybe the Force creates for them. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. There's a lot more, but we could put that in the show notes. If anyone wants to dig deeper, our show notes will have all these things in depth.
Yes. So I have one, I'm not sure that is on your list, is Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters.
Oh,
the whole idea of the X-Men is devoted to where they find the mutant children and bring them to the school for and that's then also the home base of the X-Men themselves. So it's kind of a cool thing, and they do normal education as well as learning how to control their powers and doing practices and that type of stuff, learning all the things they need to know. So it feels like it's a pretty good school.
Yeah.
Anyway, and that's in the X-Men universe for in the comic.
Doesn't S.H.I.E.L.D. have an academy?
I think S.H.I.E.L.D. had an academy at one point.
Yes. Yeah.
Poor S.H.I.E.L.D. has kind of been
really worked over.
It really has. And I need to, like, I'm always one season behind on S.H.I.E.L.D.
Me too.
because I like to binge watch
I'm about to
I know
finish
that's
the last
terrible.
one. Last season.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I need to watch, I need to get some time to myself to watch the last season because Jim didn't watch it with me. And so, like, it's one of those things, like, we each have stuff we watch together and then watch by ourselves. And anyway, it's one of those I kind of watch by myself. And it's weird because I'm back and forth on that because I kind of liked the idea that S.H.I.E.L.D. was like a thing, you know, that it was like this thing. And I get it. You have to create drama or whatever, but I kind of liked that it was there sort of watching over everybody and that everybody was good and competent. And I don't know. The superheroes do enough to mess stuff up. It didn't need to also have S.H.I.E.L.D. messing up. It's just kind of an interesting... I mean, I don't care. They can do what they want, but...
I know, because in real life, agencies like that really do mess up and nothing happens to them.
They do. I know.
I mean, they do keep us safe, but...
The idea of, like, the shield... You know, I know what you're talking about, because the characters, like, in the first few seasons talk about, you know, going to the academy and learning,
like
you know, learning stuff about, you know, even the people who are there, who are more the fighters, you know, they go through a certain track of either being, you know, an agent or being a scientist, learning those things. And they even have a couple episodes where they go back to the school, you know, and see. I like that it's an institution, and it's sad that there's not really the institution anymore. But I know you have to create drama, so you got to break things.
We'll see. I'll come back, I think.
But I think as far as headmasters of any school, I think definitely Professor X would probably be my favorite headmaster of any of the schools. I do like Dumbledore, but I like Professor X just a little bit more. So that's just me, my personal opinion.
Back to Star Wars, the Imperial Academy. Did you know there was more than one?
No.
There's a lot on different worlds, and depending on which one you go to, you get more, like, respect. Like, the best one to go to is the Royal...
Kind of like the zombies thing.
Yeah. Like, the best one to go to is the Royal Imperial Academy on Coruscant. It's the most prestigious, and only the most powerful human families with the most means can attend. Unless you're Thrawn. And then Thrawn can go wherever he wants because he's the Emperor's friend. It's a rigorous 3-year program, and like Starfleet, it's known for its intense competition and high washout rate. So, but I think that the Imperial Academy, the Academy is more about, like, squashing people, you know?
Yeah, I guess you could say that, but there is Command School. Command School is about not squashing, but it's about combat and leading those type of missions. Right. I mean,
there are courses in science, mathematics, piloting, physical training, core worlds, classical culture, and destroyer-level craft operations, which I guess that means, like, maneuvers and whatever Navy people do to move ships around in formation and stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and that's cool, too, that you mentioned that Star Trek and Starfleet is so embedded in our current culture, you know, since it's our future, technically, that it borrows very much from actual academies, like West Point or Naval Academy. It's very much based in what our current setup would be, you know, even their ranking system, stuff like that.
Well, in Starfleet, so you go through an admission process. Like, they only take people with the highest IQs who do really well, and they have all these awards and stuff. But in the Star Wars universe, the Imperial Academy recruits people. So, like, they go actively pursuing people in Alderaan, Coruscant, and some outer rim.
Well,
world.
And they're also kind of drafting, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Don't they kind of draft people for, and then you do what you're adept for, and then some of them just end up in stormtrooper school, and some of them are commanders. And so, I mean, even for an evil situation, it still has to be efficient. In fact, it probably needs to be more efficient.
Yeah. More controlling.
If you're going to set up an evil empire, you got to have some order and structure to it.
Right. But the interesting things, like in the Legends line, Han Solo went through the Imperial Academy. He was a TIE fighter pilot. And he rescued Chewie from slavery, and that's why he was kicked out of the Imperial Navy. Well, actually, he just kind of left. But he was decorated, and he was like...
In that book you gave Russell, they talked about Finn's academy training. I find that interesting.
Yeah.
Or not, is it academy? They call it the academy?
Yes.
They're doing like training missions and stuff, and they're showing kind of what he went through. It's very interesting. What's the name of that book?
Oh gosh, now that you asked,
I
can't
book,
remember.
Russell?
But it features Ray, Finn, and Poe.
Yeah, it's like right before. It's whatever was happening with them right before the
It's a good one.
starts.
It's for kids, but it's a really good book.
Like seconds before, Russell says.
He's right.
Do you remember the name of it, Russell? Before the Awakening.
That's what it's called.
Stuff.
Thank you, Russell.
Yes. He's good for that kind of stuff. He remembers things. I can't keep him reading a book because he reads so fast. I come up with some books and then he's already done reading. It's hard. It's good, though. I'm glad. What school would you send Aaron to?
Oh, well, can I go over the last one?
Oh, go over the last one.
Okay, because we still have Starfleet.
Oh, yes.
And that's the one that's the most detail I thought you would love, because I found all these really interesting things.
I'm very excited about it.
But first, before we go on, I just thought it was interesting that I found the location of the Royal Imperial Academy. It's right next to the Museum of Multi-Species Sciences and the Imperial Palace. I was kind of surprised there would be a multi-species sciences museum on Coruscant during that era, because the Emperor was prejudiced and everyone in the Imperial Navy is pretty much just humans, except for Thrawn. Anyway. But if you want to know more, if you're interested in learning more about the Imperial Academy, go read Claudia Gray's YA novel, Lost Stars. We reviewed it on the Star Wars Stacks, and it's my favorite new Star Wars book that has come out. It's really good. So on to Starfleet Academy.
You know, I have 3 Starfleet Academy shirts.
I have one that you gave me, or your mom bought.
That's right.
I still wear it.
And you bought me one. And then I got one from my friend Heather. We were roommates in college, and she was also a Star Trek fan from back in the day. And she bought me one for my birthday one year, which I still have. And then Dr. Mike, who is my Lord of the Rings friend, I guess he was cleaning out something, and he had a Starfleet Academy hoodie. And he was like, "You're the only person I know who would love this." And I'm like, yes. It's awesome. And it's been in storage for so long, and he's had it for 20 years, and it was really stored well. And so it looks brand new. All of my Starfleet stuff was gifts. I just think that's cool that people know me well enough.
That's awesome. I still wear mine. It's a little faded and I wear it, but people, they kind of give me a look. I'm pretty sure they're looking at me not like, why is she wearing a Star Trek shirt? But more like, Starfleet Academy? That date is wrong. And what is Starfleet
What
Academy?
I like is if you get the right design, from afar.
It looks like a college. Yeah, like a real shirt.
It looks like a college, and I love that. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. I just get excited about Starfleet.
You're going to love this one then. As we know from watching TNG, the admission process is intensely competitive. Mm-hmm. If you survive that process and you're approved, then you go through a rigorous testing that's competition exams. And we saw Wesley go through this in an episode of TNG. Among other topics, the exam contains sections on hyperspace physics and dynamic relationships. The unannounced psych test, which could surprise the prospective candidate at any time, is probably the most difficult part, as it forces candidates to face their biggest fears. And I think that's what Wesley was the most worried about.
You're talking about the entrance, right?
Yeah.
Because didn't that happen where he had to save someone and then he forgave Captain Picard too?
I think so.
Didn't he? He had to save someone because...
It's been a while.
I guess, no, because, Captain Picard was there when his dad died. There was an accident, and Captain Picard, he had to choose between Wesley's dad and the other guy, and because of the situation, he just chose quickly, and then Wesley's dad died.
Yeah, I read about that recently.
And everything.
It was like an away team, and he had to sacrifice one or the whole team, and he had to...
Right. There was something where he had... Yeah, there was some sort of thing, and so basically his test ended up being that he had to make that decision. Something happened and there was an accident. He didn't know it at the time because it was a holodeck setup, but he didn't know that. So there's an accident and then he has to sacrifice somebody to save somebody else, and then he understands, and that's when he faced his biggest fear. I don't know why I know that, Jen.
Because we're awesome. We are anomalies.
And that's why.
If you didn't know, on DS9, I think his name is Nog.
It is. The Ferengi.
The nephew of Quark. He wants to join the Starfleet at one point, and Ferenginar is not a part of the United Federation of Planets. He had to get a sponsor and a letter of recommendation in order to qualify or be eligible for a preparatory exam, which I don't think is the same as what Wesley went through. But he got that from Captain Sisko. And I think at first it was dicey whether or not he was going to get that. And the whole episode was about how he proved himself in order to do it. And I love that character. He is so awesome. And just his whole character arc from that point on is so interesting. And we'll talk more about him in this section too, because it comes up again later on with one of the organizations within Starfleet. I couldn't really figure out when it was established. I know it was a training program for Starfleet officers during Enterprise, but I don't think it was officially founded until the United Federations of Planets was founded. And you Star Trek nerds can write in and tell us more about that. The really interesting thing about its location, I thought you would like, Angela, is that we always see them flying in. You see the Golden Gate Bridge and the Presidio and stuff, but our Memory Alpha and Memory Beta have some really in-depth information about the location of all the facilities on campus. And the headquarters of Starfleet Academy is located in the Presidio in San Francisco, while the training facility is located in Marin County across the Golden Gate Bridge. And administration buildings are located downtown in San Francisco's financial district, which I thought was kind of confusing because there's no currency. But I think maybe they mean modern-day financial district. I'm not sure.
Right.
But that came up in a Voyager episode called Non Sequitur. Uniforms are really cool. Buildings, notable buildings. Archer Hall. I like that one. Professors, Admiral Paris, Admiral Pavel Chekhov. He taught advanced tactical and battle strategies during the Dominion War. And Montgomery Scott, during the Kelvin timeline, he taught safety protocols on Constitution-class starships. And you can look that up in Boldly Go comic number 1. And here's a throwback to Worst of Trek, Angela. Do you remember Irina from Way to Eden?
Yes,
Chekhov's
I do.
Girlfriend. He met her at the Academy. She dropped out because she couldn't hack it because the structure was too rigid. Did you know that Kirk, before he was a captain, while he was still a cadet at the Academy, taught history during his second year as a cadet? I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting.
I learned that in, I think it was called My Brother's Keeper. It's a novel. Everybody knows about the Kobayashi Maru, right? Basically, it's like a simulation, but you know the concept?
Yes, the whole concept is that it's unwinnable.
Right.
Didn't Spock create it?
I don't know.
Or created one of the versions of it?
Well, I don't know. Maybe he did because he's much older than Kirk, so he could have.
Because the big thing is that Kirk somehow outsmarted it by
reprogrammed
messing with programming.
it.
Yeah, he reprogrammed it.
He reprogrammed it to allow him to contact the captain of the Klingon battlecruiser. And he told them he was the legendary hero Kozor. And then they freed his ship, which he was in command of in the simulation. I think it was the Potemkin. And they escorted him to a damaged freighter. What really ticked off his lecturers was that the captain of the Kobayashi Maru invited him to dinner to thank him for the rescue. And so he received 9 demerits and he was almost expelled. But then they also gave him accommodation for innovation. And then we know Boothby.
Fortune favors the brave.
There are some really interesting things about Boothby. He used to bring Janeway flowers every morning for her quarters. And he was Chakotay's boxing coach, not just the groundskeeper at Starfleet Academy. He was friends with Jean-Luc, and he saved his career as a cadet.
Yep.
And also he attended his wrestling matches. Do you remember Sito Jaxa?
I do remember
from
her.
Lower Decks? Well, she was in that episode with the Nova Squadron.
With Wesley.
Yeah, the one where they had the accident and they covered it up.
And quote-unquote Paris, who's actually Paris.
Yes.
Who isn't Paris, but he is Paris.
Paris was in
because he's basically the same exact character.
So Sito was at Starfleet Academy involved in that Nova Squadron accident, which was, really bad, and they covered it up, and Wesley got in trouble for it. There is also Starfleet Medical Academy.
Should be.
I assumed that Beverly Crusher and Deanna Troi both attended that. They're separate institutions, and most of the time you go to one or the other, although Julian Bashir went to both. He went to Starfleet Academy first and then to Starfleet Medical Academy so that he can kind of keep pace with his classmates because he was like genetically enhanced and smarter than everyone. But Beverly Crusher just attended Starfleet Academy and got her Doctor of Medicine there. The reason we know that is from an episode of TNG called The Lost, which shows her profile on the screen. And the same for Deanna Troi. Mzadi, there was a novel called Mzadi, which I really like, where she went to the University of Betazoid first and got her degree in psychology there, and then went to Starfleet Academy. So not only was there a Nova squadron, but there was a Red Squadron. They were like an elite group of cadets. That group attempted a coup d'etat with Admiral Linton by disabling Earth's power station in Lisbon in one episode of DS9. And then I think it was, 2 episodes, Homefront and Paradise Lost. They were in that. And then they got to redeem themselves in DS9 in the 6th season in an episode called Valiant, where they were fighting behind enemy lines during the Dominion War. And their senior officers were killed. They should have returned, from their mission after that happened. But instead they decided to stay there and keep fighting for 8 months. And that was a really, really good episode. And I think Nog ended up on the Valiant with them. He was with a legendary squadron and he couldn't contain his excitement, but then he finds out this sucks. This is really bad. These people are brainwashed. There really is a course listed for multidimensional calculus. I have no idea what that is, but apparently they study it at Starfleet Academy, along with Klingon politics, classical Vulcan, and a whole bunch of others like advanced astrophysical navigation.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That is cool.
What I thought was funny was that they listed classical Vulcan, or they also had entry-level Latin. So it must be easier to learn Vulcan than it is to learn Latin. I don't know.
Where would you like to go, Jen?
I would not want to be in the White Tower.
No.
I think Starfleet Academy sounds like something I would want to do, and I would want to major in xenoarchaeology.
Whoa. If I had the aptitude to go to command school, that would probably be if I were to do Starfleet. But I think I'd probably like to go to Hogwarts.
Really?
I think I'd be good. Yeah. I think I'd be good in Hogwarts. That seems like a good fit for me. But the X-Men would also be good. Because if I had mutant powers, that would be a good way to do it. Oh, I just remembered something. On Charmed, which I know you didn't really watch, but I love, there is like a jump the shark moment where they find a magic school like in their house. It's like I said, it is a kind of jump the shark moment because they're trying to like do new things because it lasted 8 seasons. But they just randomly find a door to this plane where there's this magic school and they take it over and then the bad guys get it. And anyway, it's a whole thing. But there is a magic school in Charmed. So
that's cool.
It is. And it was a way for them to kind of add more story to it. It's kind of cool, but there was a magic school there. I mean, I guess if we think about it long enough, we'll probably think of all kinds of things. But
one thing I forgot to mention was that it takes 20 years to graduate as an Aes Sedai.
Dude,
legit.
But
10 years as a novice,
Aes
10 years as an apprentice.
But the Aes Sedai live longer.
That's true.
You live longer as an Aes Sedai.
Hundreds of years.
If you think about it, really wouldn't be as much of your time as you think.
That's true.
If it's 20 years.
That's true.
Although, I mean, it is very stringent. I think we're just used to our world being what it is. Okay, so if you were an Aes Sedai, what... I know we talked about this on our other show, but it's still fun to talk about.
What house?
What house do you... Or, yeah.
I would be a green.
Would you be?
And green Aja is the battle Aja. And they don't hate men, they marry them. Sometimes more than one.
That's awesome. I think I would be a blue.
I could see that.
I definitely think that I would be a blue. I hate picking the one that's like the major one in the series because like a lot of the major characters are blue. And so it's like saying that you're Gryffindor. I definitely feel like a Ravenclaw, but sometimes I feel half and half Gryffindor, Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
I don't think I could hack it in Starfleet. I definitely would do command if I had to. As far as being in the Jedi Academy, I think I could do it.
What would you be, though?
Counselor, I think. Russell and I have had lots of conversations about this, and we would both like to be white Jedi. Gray
yes,
Jedi with the white lightsaber and the serious like balance between good and evil type thing where you learn. Anyway, so we've had long conversations about that.
When I cosplay, I am gray.
He's definitely a gray. yeah. It's kind of a neat way to do it. I do like my yellow lightsaber, though. I don't know what that means, but
I can't remember. I think mine.
It is something.
Mine is teal, and I've heard that, like in the Old Republic, it was for healing.
Oh yeah, maybe.
I always play a guardian.
Who knows? Yeah, I usually do counselor when I play through that. Actually, I like to do bounty hunter. Or smuggler, because they have the coolest weapons. But anyway.
So you want to wrap it
up?
All
right. Well, yeah. Let's do it. I think we did good.
Yeah. Well, there's
something here. It's fun. I mean, yeah.
It is fun to have this kind of a talk. I know we didn't hit all of them, so if you remember one that we missed, please do tell us. And if you want us to cover something in more depth, let us know. You can contact us by writing us at girlygeekz@gmail.com. That's girlygeekz with a Z @gmail.com. And visit our website for more in-depth information on the Academies, as well as a ton of other fun sci-fi fantasy topics at anomalypodcast.com. That's ANOMALY podcast.com. If you like this episode of Anomaly, please share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
We'll be back soon. Bye.
We like stars. All the stars in the sky. Especially the stars you give us on iTunes. To us, you are the biggest star in the cosmos. Go to iTunes and give us a rating. Thanks.